אוויר הרים צלול כיין, וריח אורנים, נישא ברוח הרביים, עם כל פעמונים. ובתרדמת אילן האבן, שבויה בחלומה, העיר אשר בדד יושבת, ובליבה חומה. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. איך יבשו בורות המים, כיכר השוק ריקה, ואין פוקדת הר הבית בעיר העתיקה. ובמערות אשר בסלע מהלילות רוחות, ואין יורד אל ים המלח בדרך יריחו. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור, הלא לכל שירייך אני כינור. ירושלים של זהב ושל נחושת ושל אור.
Good evening. My name is Lee Lasher, and I am the president of Jewish Federation of Northern New Jersey. I want to welcome you here this evening to this important program. Like me, I'm sure many of you have been glued to the news outlets as we monitor the situation in Israel and pray for peace and safety for our brothers and sisters and all good citizens of Israel. I often feel like my body is here in the USA, but my heart is in Israel. This is one of those times. Tonight's program is the second of a series of conversations with people who are either on the ground in Israel or very close to the situation. This afternoon, we heard from a young family with 3 kids and one on the way who shared what it's like to be living in the midst of this conflict. In a few minutes, we're going to hear from Consul General Israel Nitzan. Consul General Nitzan coordinates the political work at the Israeli consulate in New York. He develops and maintains relations with national, state, and local elected officials, as well as community leaders, as a representative of the State of Israel. Consul General Nitzan has served in the foreign ministry in other capacities. He was born in Netanya and completed his studies at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. On a personal note, Consul General Nitzan has assisted me and Jewish Federation with numerous community issues and provided important help when needed. It is greatly noted and appreciated. The Consul General will do a short presentation, and then we will open it up to questions. If you would like to submit a question, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. I will feed the questions to Consul General Nitzan. And now, I'm proud to introduce to you Consul General Israel Nitzan.
Thank you very much, Lee, for a very kind introduction, and the relationship and the commitment is mutual for both personally between the two of us, and of course with the members of the federation, of course the Chief Executive Officer Jason Seamus, dear friend, and all the rest of the of the community in northern New Jersey. One good thing that happened recently in New York is that the restrictions of travel has been lifted, and we are planning, let's say, more trips. And I think that the easiest first trip to do is to New Jersey, and of course we will visit you soon, and I hope that we'll be able to also to see you in person. I will maybe open with a very, very quick update, and then we can we will have, let's say, our conversations, you and I, and we can open it for additional questions. Well, actually, this is a very special moment because at 7 p.m. Anyway, I'll start differently. The government, the security cabinet met. The Israeli security cabinet met this morning, this afternoon in Israel, tonight in Israel actually, and agreed for an Egyptian proposal for a ceasefire that actually went into effect 6 minutes ago. I haven't yet received any updates on a violation of the ceasefire, but at least on the side of the IDF, there is a commitment and there is this desire and willingness to end this operation. The idea, what it is, maybe I should say that we act in self-defense. Hamas has shot about more than 4,000 rockets at our civilians, at our communities, indiscriminately. The IDF retaliated against military targets of Hamas when the goal was to degrade Hamas's military capabilities and to at least the goal was to achieve a situation in which Hamas is much weaker militarily, that Hamas lost most of its strategic capabilities. We'll talk about it later. And Hamas also lost its desire is deterred and lost its desire to launch an additional attack. We can discuss everything in the Q&A, but the goal was, Hamas's goal was to achieve some political gains in the West Bank and in Jerusalem, in Judea and Samaria, and in Jerusalem. And our goal, in addition to the military dimension, was also to make sure that they do not achieve this political achievement. Their goal, simply put, is to take over the West Bank, to take over Jerusalem, and to take over the Palestinian Authority. It was our goal to prevent them from achieving this goal. We're now discussing, again, the ceasefire is in place, but the question is what is going to happen in the day after. And the day after is we will need a much longer term of peace and quiet, and Hamas not shooting at our communities. All the other aspects of life in Gaza and the political processes and maybe the question of the peace process, again, it is more linked to the Abraham Accords, are also valid and are also relevant. But the question here today is our goal was to achieve a situation in which the ceasefire guarantee an ending of this round of violence, and Hamas cannot and has no interest in attacking Israel for a very long term. This is the idea. And I will stop here, and maybe we can just have a conversation and.
Okay, great. That sounds great, Israel. Yeah, you're touching on a lot of the things that, of course, many people are wondering about. I mean, in general, how do you feel the Israeli government has responded to Hamas's terror campaign?
So I think that first of all, we should say that this massive rocket attacks from began on May 10th. It was not a coincidence. Actually, Hamas was planning this part of its strategy to incite the people in Jerusalem, lead into a situation in which they take advantage of the heated both religious and political sentiment during the month of Ramadan. May 10th was the day after Laylat al-Qadr, which is the holiest night for Muslims during Ramadan. It was also Yom Yerushalayim, the day that we celebrate the reunification of Jerusalem. It also coincided with the hearing, at least the plan to have a hearing on the question of Sheikh Jarrah, that is a legal issue, a legal dispute between Jews and Arabs in Jerusalem. And they started to incite the tensions and the sentiments leading to May 10th, part of their strategy to attack Israel at 6 p.m. by shooting rockets at Jerusalem, basically taking advantage of the turmoil in Jerusalem during that day. Israel acted in self-defense. It is our right. It is not only our right, it is our obligation to protect our civilians. They shoot at our civilians, and we needed to retaliate. Again, the goal was to attack. The IDF actually has launched more than 2,000 attacks against Hamas military targets. The goal was, again, to degrade Hamas's terrorist capabilities, and again, exhaust its will to do it again. We targeted weapon depots. We targeted, and more importantly, the manufacturing capabilities, both rocket manufacturing capabilities and other kinds of weapons, their naval assets and naval units, their headquarters, and also what they perceive as the metro, which is not a civil public transportation system, but actually it's a network of underground tunnel, a strategic network of underground tunnel that was supposed to use them to be used during an incursion, an attack by the IDF against Gaza. So this is more or less what happened. I think that Hamas has lost most of its strategic capabilities. They shot a significant number of rockets. We can talk about Iron Dome if you want, but the point here is that our goal was to guarantee that they do not achieve their strategic goal of having some kind of let's say, a very significant and visible achievement, and do not manage to achieve any political gains in Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem.
Yeah, we'll get to the Iron Dome. Actually, you mentioned the metro, and that's something I'm curious. Everyone hears that the metro. Can you, and you touched on it, but can you give a little bit more detail of what exactly Hamas built and what was it for, and what did the IDF do to destroy it?
When we're talking, well, in the last decade or even more, we've been talking about tunnels. Now, the tunnels were used for basically incursion and infiltrating into Israel, from the Gaza Strip into Israel. They had their elite units, a Nukhba, which is a commando unit that was supposed to use the tunnels in order to get into Israel and attack our communities. The metro is something else. The metro is again, over the past decade, Hamas has actually invested billions of dollars to build, again, what they call the metro, which is a network of terror tunnels in the Gaza Strip, inside the Gaza Strip, that should use their military, their terrorist forces in a situation, in a scenario that the IDF actually invades into Gaza and actually going into a military confrontation with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. The point here is this: that instead of building schools and hospitals, they used billions of dollars worth of cement to build basically a terror city underneath the ground, in which they can actually go. We're talking about more than 100 kilometers tunnels, concrete tunnels, that basically allows the terrorists to move underneath the ground when the IDF is on the ground, to go underneath the ground, to move from one place to another, to rearm, to reorganize, to regroup. And again, this is during a military confrontation with Israel. It was supposed to be their strategic asset to surprise the IDF. We learned about it from our, let's say, technological capabilities, and the IDF basically the 100 kilometers of tunnels using very heavy bombs that were shot from the IDF jets. They lost no capability of this capability. And again, I should say the money put towards this metro could have been far better spent on welfare of the people of Gaza, to build roads, hospitals. Think about the cement that they used to 100 kilometers of tunnels, schools. And again, instead of putting the people of Gaza at risk, by the way, for example, for civilian purposes, they can also build shelters with this. They did not build shelters. They built shelters and bunkers for themselves. So this is Hamas, and this is what Hamas is doing, and this is basically gone by now, and by due to the IDF attack.
Call a couple to the idea for that. The Iron Dome it seems like it's just an amazing technology, and how many lives in Israel have been saved due to the Iron Dome? And we hear reports of over 90% accuracy. Is that accurate?
Well, the Iron Dome actually, this is a more advanced stage of the Iron Dome, and it's. I'm sorry, my internet connection is unstable, so I hope that you can hear me and see me.
Yeah, we can. No problem.
Okay, good. So yes, the IDF achieved. The Iron Dome achieved a more than 90% of interception rate, which is a phenomenal achievement. So if we're talking about 4,000 rockets, maybe I'll start with another trivia number, which is one of seven. One of seven rockets failed to cross the fence into Israel and fell inside the Gaza Strip and basically exploded inside civilian communities in the Gaza Strip, and also led to casualties of innocent Palestinians. So the rest of the rockets that did not fall inside the Gaza Strip went to Israel. Of course, the Iron Dome, I think that you know that basically is a very sophisticated system that prioritizes the different rockets, and based on the basically foreseeing the potential hitting place of the rocket, and prioritizing those rockets that are aimed or potentially could hit civilian communities, and those rockets are being shot down. So 90% of them were shot down, which is a phenomenal rate. I cannot tell you how many lives it saved. I can tell you that definitely, for sure, many lives were saved. So if you calculate the numbers of the rockets, you can understand that the very few rockets that actually hit buildings eventually killed people. We had 12 casualties. 12 people were killed due to a rocket hit. And yes, it saved many lives. But beyond that, it also allowed us, by minimizing the number of civilian casualties on our side, it basically allowed Israel to delay any additional potential escalation of the conflict and go into a wider military confrontation with Hamas. So Iron Dome actually is a stabilizing factor that allows us to contain such a provocation by Hamas. And of course, I need to say that, of course, we thank the US Congress for their support to this very important project, and for saving lives of Israelis. Of course, I'm thanking the US Congress as well as the US administration for this remarkable achievement.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it was a former New Jersey Congressman, Steve Rothman, that was one of the original, um, Congress people to push the Iron Dome system and get the approval in Congress for the funding.
Yeah,
So New Jersey certainly has a hand in that.
New Jersey
I think
does.
the Iron Dome featured in one of the best pictures I've seen so far, where they have that picture of the Iron Dome missiles, and you see the missiles from Gaza, and you see the Iron Dome interceptors, and you
Yes.
see when people talk about try to make a moral equivalence between Hamas and Israel, and how outrageous that is when you see just one simple picture like that. Can you talk a little bit about support from President Biden and other world leaders? And also, just to add on to that, obviously, you mentioned the Abraham Accords, which is an incredible achievement. Maybe talk a little bit about, from the countries in the Middle East like the UAE and Bahrain, how have they reacted during this
Yeah.
conflict?
So first of all, I should say we have excellent relations with the with this current U.S. administration, and like the good relations that we had with previous U.S. administrations, and it is our intention to keep it good and to keep it open and productive. And we have one ally, and it's the United States, and it is our interest to keep Israel a bipartisan issue in the American political life. I think that we had a very good dialogue, close dialogue with the U.S. administration. The administration actually sent an envoy, Hadi Amir, to the ground. He was there for the whole period. There were conversations between both the president and the prime minister, as well as defense, the minister of defense, as well as between the secretary of state and the foreign minister. Again, we may not necessarily agree on everything, but again, the dialogue was very close, and I think that what the president did in his statement is asserting that Israel's right to defend itself is, and especially when thousands of rockets are coming into your country, is very, very helpful and very important for us. And I think that the last 2 weeks proved that the channels of communication between our administrations are open and active. Again, I'm not saying that we may agree on everything. You can never agree on everything, but at least to have this very frank conversation between allies, it's very, very important. Since, let's say, in the last 2 weeks, we were actually trying to encourage diplomatically, trying to encourage more and more countries to recognize, to acknowledge our right to defend our civilians, and to condemn Hamas. Again, you're going back to what you said about this moral equivalence. Israel and Hamas are not on the same level, and we're talking about a sovereign democratic state fighting in order to save the lives of their own civilian communities, actually fighting also to save the lives of Palestinians, while Hamas was clearly targeting intentionally our civilians. We had several statements of support by different leaders from around the world. In the last 2 days, we had solidarity visits of foreign ministers, both Greece, Germany, the Czech Republic. We're working also on inviting also governors, by the way, to visit Israel, U.S. governors. And we've had again many other countries showed their support and solidarity. Regionally, Egypt is always on the lead because of its historic role in Gaza, and their interest due to the border with the Gaza Strip. I think that regionally it was relatively quiet. You could have, usually you expect to have much more critical and more vocal voices coming from the Middle East. I think that the point here is that most members of the Middle East today know what Hamas is and who they are and how dangerous they are, not only to us, also to them. For example, the United Arab Emirates, the Hamas is a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. This is one of the main threats in the Arab world. Of course, their relationship with Iran is something that is well known for everyone, and of course, this is so at least regionally, it was relatively quiet. We are still fully committed to promoting the Abraham Accords as a regional framework to achieve peace. And we call on our, basically all our neighbors, including our Palestinian neighbors, to join this camp of peace in the Middle East.
You mentioned the real estate dispute in Sheikh Jarrah. Can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean, there are reports in the newspapers here which try to make that as the catalyst for the conflict, for the recent conflict. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that the problem is that the Sheikh Jarrah, again, legal dispute is a legal dispute that has nothing to do with the state of Israel. We're talking about Palestinians who claim that they are the owners of this property, while there are Jews who claim that historically they have the ownership. It was discussed in two different courts, both the local Jerusalem court and then in the Jerusalem district court, and was there. The Palestinian claims were rejected. The Palestinian owners then changed their version, and they claim that they're not only the owners, they are the residents and the tenants. Anyway, it was supposed to be brought to the Supreme Court. Again, I should emphasize that those who claim that they are in threat of eviction actually had the right to appeal 3 times to court. Eventually, the government, because Hamas turned this into falsely, they basically, Hamas has taken advantage of this legal dispute and turned it into a nationalist, religious question of basically the Jews trying to take over Jerusalem. I have to say that unfortunately, the people who actually share this, some of the politicians around the world and as well as in the media, who let's say accept this version of this narrative, basically playing into the hands of Hamas. But it was part of our effort to de-escalate the situation in Jerusalem before the beginning of this round of conflict. Basically, the Attorney General of Israel reached out to the Supreme Court, asking them to postpone the hearing and to postpone also the eviction in order to de-escalate the situation and prevent additional friction and additional violence in Jerusalem. So this was part of our efforts to exercise restraint. It was rejected by Hamas, and eventually Hamas called for, on that day, again, it was part of the strategic plan to basically evacuate all of the police presence on the Temple Mount, as well as Sheikh Jarrah. Of course, it was rejected by the government. At 6 p.m. in Israel, they launched the rockets at Jerusalem. Again, those who claim that they are the guardians of Jerusalem and the holy sites shot 7 missiles, 7 rockets at the third holiest place for Islam. And this is where things became ugly.
Yeah, it's hard to understand that people fall for that kind of false narrative. I renovated my house about 15 years ago, and my neighbor behind me thought I built it too high. So he, contacted the town. I got, they contacted me, but he never at one point shot any missiles in my backyard, as far as so that was.
That's the point.
Exactly. What about the riots and the fighting that's occurring in the streets of Israel between Israeli Arabs and the Jews, like in Akko and Lod? I mean, that's obviously concerning, and we all, have. Spent many of us spent a lot of time in Israel, and we have good friends, Israeli Arabs, and it's a little bit hard to understand that. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think that this is one of the most disappointing and negative developments coming out of this round of violence with Hamas. Um, tensions between, I have to say, tensions between radicals on both in Jewish and Arab communities in Israel, leading into confrontations and violent confrontations in mixed cities, especially Lod. You know, both the prime minister, the president, President Rivlin, criticized it, condemned it, and basically both the prime minister instructed the Israeli police to guarantee again to bring back law and order into those cities. Listen, I'm not saying Israel is a diverse country. It's a diverse society. And of course there are, like in any other country, there are tensions between community and especially if you have certain, let's say, those radical elements within every community that are looking for, you know, the fight and the confrontation and to basically attack the other side. But I truly believe that this is a minority. This is a very vocal and very aggressive and very violent minority, and they should be treated according to the law. I truly believe that the vast majority of the Israeli population believes in our shared, you know, in this vision of a shared future for Jews and Arabs in Israel. You know, this was an exceptional year because of COVID-19, and it's interesting because you know, you have this external threat of the virus, threat not only to, you know, to the country, but a life-threatening disease that people suddenly realize that the people who actually saved their lives and the lives of their loved ones was actually either, well, for Jews, it was non-Jews and an Arab doctor who saved their lives, and vice versa. So I think that there are some very positive developments also in this sense. I truly believe that the vast majority believes in this vision of a shared future, and we need to fight those extreme elements and not to allow them to set up the agenda.
That's good to hear. I totally agree with that. And just as an aside, how is your family doing in Israel, and how's the mood in Israel?
The family is doing fine. At least my parents they stayed at home and not taking any risk. There's a safe area, a safe room in the house, and they stayed close and not taking any risk. I think that the country was again. This is not the first time that we're attacked by Hamas's missiles and rockets. I think that we're looking for a long-term solution to this problem. I hope that the IDF managed to achieve this goal during the military campaign. I think that the people are very happy that this conflict this round of violence is over. The problem is still there, I have to say. The Hamas is still there. Hamas is still in control of the Gaza Strip for now the 15th year. But I think that again, there was a sense of solidarity, of unity, and you know, it's good. We're all Jews, and we may not necessarily agree with each other, and suddenly you see some shows of, you know, expressions of solidarity and support. People from the north invited people from the south for the weekend, at least to send the kids to have some rest up in the north. So it was. I think that what, you know, it brings the good out of us. You know, such a security crisis and situations.
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to see that sustained, especially that unity part. I think that's the secret sauce for the Jewish people, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
let me ask you about specifics. What specifically would the Israeli government ask us to do? What do they want the Jewish community of northern New Jersey and throughout the states to do? And maybe what specific resources of philanthropy or needs are there, for rebuilding or for victims of terror, for emotional healing? What would you suggest about that?
First of all, I should open by thanking you for everything that you have done and everything that you are doing. Listen, I think that we are now hopefully behind this round of violence. We do. I think that today we are here, at least also politically, in a bit of a different situation compared to 12 days ago. We need your support. We need expressions of solidarity with Israel. I know that the conflict is over, but still your support is very, very much valued and needed. Of course, everything that you can do, part of the federation system. I know that Eric Fingerhut is in Israel, and there was a virtual tour today, virtual mission to Israel. That was very impressive. And we're actually working on several delegations of Jewish leadership to show their solidarity with Israel. This is very, very much. This is very important and and we do need this support. And I think that also for us as in this period when we know that in this specific crisis that Israel is, today, both in Israel and also here, everything is political, everything is partisan. Our societies are very much polarized. And if we can turn Israel into a consensual issue, if we can just, show that we're one people, we're one family, and only then go back to our arguments about the different our disagreements between the community here and in Israel. But at least for this time being, just to show that we are one people and one family, I think that this is extremely, extremely important.
Okay, well, you can count on that for sure from
I know
us
that.
and from the entire community. Wonderful. I just, first of all, thank you so much for starting with the ceasefire news, because that was really uplifting, and we're glad to hear that. May it be a long-term peace for us, but that was really great news, and I would just want to thank you for your insights and commentary and clarity and understanding the complexity of the situation. We're very grateful that you were able to find the time for us in your extraordinarily busy schedule, as I can only imagine. And please convey our thoughts and prayers for the peace and safety of the people of Israel to our brothers and sisters in Israel. Thank you again, Toda Rabah.
Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everyone who joined us this evening on Zoom. And a quick reminder that tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. we'll have a conversation with Herb Kenyon, the senior contributing editor and analyst for the Jerusalem Post. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.